Hello students, this is Dr. Nagaraj from Bangalore Institute of Technology. I hope our previous videos on semiconductors, dielectrics, modern physics and Maxwell's equations met your expectations and served the purpose. Please feel free to contact us for any doubts and clarifications. In this session, we are going to discuss laser, that is light amplification by stimulated emission of radiation. 20th century saw some amazing discoveries and inventions. Laser is one among them. When it was invented in 1958, laser has been called as solution looking for many problems. Yes, indeed, it is a solution for many problems today. We have lasers throughout our society. You name any field, you can see the role of laser there. Whether it is a field of agriculture, entertainment, medicine, information and technology, communication, whatever it is, you have the role of laser there. So let us make an attempt to understand laser in detail. I have divided the syllabus like this. First we shall have a discussion on fundamentals. Fundamentals include these many things, where we have one important theory called Einstein's A and B coefficients. Next we move on to conditions and requisites for laser. There we discuss mainly about the requirements for the lasing action and construction and working of two lasers, namely carbon dioxide laser and semiconductor laser, and we will see some applications. As per the syllabus, we have to discuss only two applications. As usual, some historical developments. In 1900, Planck's quantum theory of radiation marked the turning point in physics and inspired many physicists. His original idea was that the matter was quantized but not the light. In 1905, Einstein made an attempt to convert Planck's viewpoint. In the theory on photoelectric effect, he proposed that light also delivers its energy in chunks called photons. In 1917, Einstein proposed a totally new concept called stimulated emission that makes laser possible. But 1918 to 1950, perhaps political scenario all over the world made physicists to focus more on the research related to improvisation of army related matters, maybe because of World War I and II, and hence nobody took stimulated emission concept so seriously. Well, in 1951, C.H. Towns of Columbia University in New York conceives his maser idea while sitting on a park bench in Washington, and in 1953 the first maser began operating. Maser stands for microwave amplification by stimulated emission of radiation. In 1957, Columbia University graduate student Gordon Gould wrote in brief in his notebook his ideas for building laser, and he coined the name laser. In 1960, T.H. Myman at Hughes Research Laboratory constructed the first laser, ruby laser. In the same year came another working laser, that is helium neon laser. Well, in 1961, the first medical treatment using a laser on human patient came in, that was in the Institute of Ophthalmology at Columbia. In 1963, carbon dioxide laser was developed by Indian-born scientist Kumar Patel at AT&T Labs. It is now used worldwide as a cutting tool in surgery and industry. Here we have great personalities who contributed immensely for the development of laser and laser industry. C.H. Towns, who designed first maser, Gordon Gould, who coined the name laser, T.H. Myman, ruby laser, Kumar Patel, carbon dioxide laser, and some images of few of thousands of laser applications: laser printer, HVD and DVD, laser induced fusion reaction, and eye surgery. Well, after an exposure to historical developments of laser, now it is time to discuss in detail about lasers. Introduction. This year, that is 2020, laser is celebrating 60th anniversary. Over this period, laser technology developed in such a manner that its market share is in terms of several billions of US dollars. If you take 5 top milestones of 20th century, certainly laser will find its place over there. Today we have lasers with wavelengths ranging from 200 nanometer to 200 micrometer, power ranging from milliwatt to gigawatt, line widths ranging from 10 power minus 1 to minus 15, cost from few dollars to many millions of dollars, size from tenths of a millimeter to tenths of a meter. Now the question, what makes lasers so unique? First, the definition or the expansion. Laser stands for light amplification by stimulated emission of radiation. So we have to concentrate more on these two terms, that is amplification and stimulated emission. First, before I proceed, let me mention the properties of laser. First property, laser light is very nearly monochromatic and highly coherent with all the waves exactly in phase. Laser beam is well collimated and hardly diverges. Energy density is extremely high. Of course, it is well polarized. In total, some of the special properties are monochromaticity, directionality, coherency and brightness. Look at these illustrations. This first diagram represents ordinary light, or you can take it as light emitted from the sun. This is monochromatic light. Wavelengths are same, but the starting points are not same. This is the light emitted from the laser beam, laser source. So, not only wavelength is same, means not only the light is monochromatic, also it is coherent, means all the waves are in phase. So, basically laser is monochromatic and coherent. These are the two exclusive properties of laser beam. Laser can cut metals, drill holes, ionize air, weld metals of different thermal conductivity, knock down missiles, cool atoms and molecules to microkelvin level, induce nuclear fusion, and the list goes on. Laser today is part and parcel of information technology, entertainment industry and medicine. Use of the laser can be related to its properties. Now the question, how do you produce a light of such a varied and unique properties? See, in order to understand the working of laser, we have to have a thorough knowledge of what is known as interaction of radiation with matter. Dear students, you already studied atomic physics little bit, and you have, I hope, the knowledge of energy levels, concept of ground state, excited state, etc. Now let me, based on that, proceed with interaction of radiation with matter. Consider any two of many energy states of an atom, say E1 and E2. E2 greater than E1. For time being, I take E1 as ground state. When light of certain frequency nu shines on that atom, that means when you incident a light on the atom, three things will happen. Number one, it can be absorbed by the atom in the lower level, that is in the ground level, and thereby it goes to E2. This is called excitation. This is known as induced absorption. Next, after spending a brief interval of time, that is less than 10 power minus 8 seconds, it returns to ground level by emitting that excess energy, that is E2 minus E1, in the form of photon. This is known as spontaneous emission. Spontaneous because for this to happen, nobody's recommendation is required. And remember, spontaneous emission is responsible for emission of light in ordinary light sources. Third one, if somehow the atom is already in the excited state, then the incident photon may influence the atom to undergo transition from E2 to lower level by emitting the photon. This is termed as stimulated emission. During this process, we get more number of identical photons. Underline this. We get more number of identical photons which are exactly in phase. In fact, this is our requirement. We have to multiply the photons in order to achieve the amplification, and that is possible only by means of stimulated emission. So in total we can say spontaneous emission gives you ordinary light, stimulated emission gives you laser light. And for spontaneous emission, no recommendation, no influence required, but for stimulated emission, influence is essential. In light, what is amplification? It is nothing but producing identical photons, and that can be achieved by stimulated emission. See, intensity is directly proportional to number of photons. As number of photons increases, intensity increases, and that is nothing but amplification. In all the three diagrams, E1 corresponds to lower state, I call it as ground state. E2 corresponds to excited state. This is an atom in the ground state. Now a photon incident on it, As a result, it goes to higher level. So photon incident on it and it goes to higher level. Next, after spending a brief interval of time in the excited state, that is here, it will come down to ground state and thereby a photon is emitted. This is the emitted photon. For this to happen, nobody's influence is required, which is what I mentioned in the previous case. This is nothing but spontaneous emission. Next, if atom is already in the excited state, somehow it is already in the excited state and now you send a photon. So it will hit the atom, means it is going to instigate the atom or influence the atom or stimulate the atom. As a result, it will come down. What happens? The de-excitation of the atom will lose energy in the form of photon, and incident photon will not lose any energy, it also will come out, so thereby we get two identical photons. So number of photon doubled. So this way photons are multiplied. So first one is induced absorption, second one is spontaneous emission, the third one is stimulated emission. That is what is important for us. Or we can represent these three processes in equation form. A stands for atom, h nu is the incident energy. So in the first case, A plus h nu equals A star, means excited. Next, second case, excited atom comes to ground state, so it becomes A with a release of photon, that is this photon. Third case, atom is already in the excited state. The question is, how do you excite the atom? That we will discuss later on. That is a different issue. When it is in the excited state, now you send a photon. That is what I did here. Then what happens? A comes to ground state. So atom will come to ground state. But now the result is 2 photons, 2h nu. Now the question, whether laser is violating the law of conservation of energy? That means, are we creating energy? Answer, no. It is not the violation of energy. It is just manipulation of the energy. See, in spontaneous emission, what happens? All the emitted photons are traveling in random directions, and photons are emitted leisurely. Whenever they want, they come out. Okay, they go like this, they like this, they like this, they go like this. But in laser, all photons are emitted at once and they all travel in the same direction. So this is something like random motion. This is something like uniform motion. Let me give an illustration. We have people moving in random direction here and here in the same direction. So this represents ordinary light. The next one represents laser light. So laser is not creation of energy. It is only streamlining the energy. Thereby we can have more energy density, that is energy per unit volume. To convince you in a better manner, I give you one simple example for stimulated emission. See, audience coming out of the theater once the movie is over is nothing but stimulated emission. They all are coming at a time out of the theater and moving in the same direction. I hope now you know what is stimulated emission. Now let me proceed with the theory called Einstein's theory of A and B coefficients. First, introduction. As mentioned earlier, in Planck's theory, there was no discussion about how the energy comes out in the form of a photon when atom goes from one level to another. Actually, Planck did not discuss this particular concept at all. It is Einstein who made an attempt to convert Planck's viewpoint of quantization of oscillators into quantization of light. In 1917, he introduced what is known as stimulated emission and used it to arrive at Planck's radiation formula. It is now known as Einstein's theory of A and B coefficients. Theory. Consider two energy states, say E1 and E2. E2 is greater than E1. Let N1 be the number of atoms in E1, N2 be the number of atoms in E2 state. When light of certain frequency nu and energy density U nu is incident on it, there will be three possibilities. So three things are going to happen. Number one, induced absorption. Atoms in E1 level can absorb the incident photon and get excited to E2 state. The probability that this will occur per second is directly proportional to number of atoms. More the atoms, more excitation in E1, and incident energy density. More the energy density, more excitation. This is called induced absorption. That is rate of induced absorption proportional to N1 U nu. That is equal to B of 1 to N1 U nu. This is a proportionality constant. Second possibility, spontaneous emission. Once the atom goes to E2 level, it will have certain probability to spontaneously drop to E1 level by emitting excess energy in the form of photon. It does not depend on the incident energy. I already mentioned this in the previous slide. It would have happened even if there is no light also. Whenever atom is in the excited state, it will come down to ground state within 10 power minus 8 seconds. So it does not depend on the strength of the incident light. It only depends on the number of atoms in the excited state. Hence we can say rate of spontaneous emission is just proportional to N2. That is equal to A suffix 21 N2. A is also a constant, proportionality constant. Third possibility, that is stimulated emission. The incident photon somehow interacts with atom in E2 level to induce or to influence or to stimulate that atom to go to E1 level. This is very important for us. This again depends on the number of atoms in the excited state. More number of atoms, more instigation. And also it depends on the energy density. More the energy density, more instigation. Therefore, rate of stimulated emission is proportional to N2 U nu, that is equal to B21 N2 U nu, where B21 is once again proportionality constant. Here A and B are proportionality constants. I just now mentioned three possibilities, namely induced absorption, that is over here, spontaneous emission, that is here, stimulated emission, that is here. See, in induced absorption, photon is absorbed. Spontaneous emission, same photon is emitted. In stimulated emission, two photons are emitted. So in the previous slide, I mentioned two constants A and B. They are known as Einstein's coefficients. B12 is called stimulated absorption coefficient. A21 is spontaneous emission coefficient. B21 is stimulated emission coefficient. So 21 means emission, 12 means absorption. The whole system is in thermal equilibrium at certain temperature T. Therefore, rate of induced absorption, that is this one, is equal to rate of spontaneous emission, that is this one, plus rate of stimulated emission. So this is equal to this plus this. So we go like this: B12 N1 U nu, that is equation number 1, equals A21 N2 plus B21 N2 U nu, that is 2 plus 3. So equation 1 is equal to equation 2 plus 3. Next, simplify. B12 N1 U nu minus B21 N2 U nu, that means I take this B term here, is equal to so much. Next, take U nu common factor, then we arrive at this equation. Further, U nu alone I want. Then what happens? A21 N2, that is RHS, divided by this whole thing, that is here. Now take B21 N2 common factor, B21 N2 common factor. Then this term becomes B12 N1 by B21 N2. I hope you can make out the simplification, minus 1. Next, cancel N2 N2, then numerator becomes 1. Then you write this A21 B21 separately, then I left with this equation. I call this as equation number 4. But I make use of one equation here which we have not discussed in any of our previous chapters. I just take it here and you take it for granted. It is called Boltzmann's equation. It gives you the ratio of number of atoms in the ground state to number of atoms in the excited state at any temperature T. Here K stands for Boltzmann constant. So I make use of this here. So I replace N1 by N2 by this equation. Then 4 becomes U nu equals A21 by B21, that is this term, open the bracket, 1 as it is, divided by B12 by B21 remains as it is. In place of N1 by N2, I have e to the power of h nu by kT minus 1. I call it as equation number 5. See, this formula is for energy density of the incident light. So this equation is for energy density of light, that is U nu. Please recall modern physics discussion. There I mentioned Planck's quantum theory of radiation. There we had this equation. So compare 5 and 6. Just make 1-to-1 comparison. We get A21 by B21, that is A21 by B21 is equal to 8 pi h nu cube by c cube, where c represents speed of light. Then B12 by B21, see B12 by B21, here we have just 1. So B12 by B21 is equal to 1, or cross multiply B12 equals B21. So from this whole discussion we arrive at these two equations. I call them as equation 7 and equation 8. And from these two equations we are going to make two important conclusions. Okay, from Einstein's theory we obtained these two equations. From these two equations let us make some conclusions. First conclusion, from equation 8, that is from equation 8, the probability of stimulated absorption, that is B12, is equal to probability of stimulated emission, that is B21. Look at equation number 8, B12 equals B21. What actually it means? Here is an explanation. If light of energy h nu is incident on a system, that is on this system, where atom is in the ground state, or it can be even in the excited state also, there is equal chance of taking atoms from E1 to E2, that is B12, and vice versa, that is from E2 to E1, that is B21. That means the stimulated absorption is equal to stimulated emission, so that you cannot produce more and more photons at all. That means amplification is not at all possible using only two states. So if you take the atom from here to there is every possibility of taking atom from E2 to E1. So induced photon will have equal probability. So therefore you cannot achieve amplification at all. So it is a waste exercise, something like taking water back in a waterfall. This suggests the necessity of a third level called metastable level. This is the metastable level. So this is the conclusion. That means equation 8 tells you that lasing action is impossible with only two levels, that is ground state and excited state. Second conclusion, from the equation 7, the rate of spontaneous emission, that is A of 21, is directly proportional to nu cube. You can check in the equation. So if you supply higher energy, just to have more number of atoms in the higher level. Actually we want this. We want more number of atoms in the higher level. So to achieve more number of atoms in the higher level, if you send more energy to the ground state, what happens? There is every chance of increase in the spontaneous emission. That is what this equation says. A21 proportional to nu cube. So if you supply more energy, it will encourage spontaneous emission than stimulated emission, which is of course is not our intention. So these two important conclusions can be drawn from Einstein's theory. So Einstein's theory tells you about the necessity of metastable state and then choosing light of suitable frequency for lasing action. Actually, stimulated emission is analogous to harmonic oscillators like simple pendulum, which is oscillating under the action of periodic force. Please recall forced oscillations from the first module. When frequency of the applied force matches the natural frequency, amplitude of the oscillation becomes maximum. That means resonance. Here, similarly, if the energy of the incident photon matches the energy difference, then there will be a sort of resonance and stimulation takes place and we get more number of photons. Even though Einstein gave the concept of stimulated emission way back in 1917, somehow nobody connected the dots for nearly next 40 years. So they did not take the concept of stimulated emission so seriously. Well students, with this I have come to an end of first session. I have made use of these sources. I duly acknowledge them. As usual, thanks for your cooperation and attention. If you have any doubts, contact me via email. Thank you.